Icy Originals here, back with more unusual stories. I just watched WrestleMania 39 and I enjoyed it for the most part, but it got me thinking, what is the WWE going to look like moving forward without Mr. McMahon? Well, that's a question no one will know, but what we do know is all of the crazy things Vince McMahon has done with his long career as owner and CEO. Let's take a look at the dark side of Mr. McMahon, but before we do that, we have to take a look at how the WWE started. WWE has its existence since 1952, and Jess McMahon initially founded it. It was formed as CWF, Capital Wrestling Corporation. Yes, that was the initial name of the WWE. Later it was renamed WWWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. This was when Jay McMahon inherited his father's business in 1979. It was again renamed as WWF, World Wrestling Federation, by Vincent J. McMahon. The name WWE evolved as the company lost a lawsuit brought over the initials by World Wildlife Foundation in 2002. The name WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, was made official on May 6, 2002. Undoubtedly, WWE is the most successful professional wrestling promotion. Over the past several years, WWE has promoted prominent wrestlers like The Great Undertaker, Randy Orton, and John Cena, and much more, and gave wrestling fans the best experience of watching iconic matches and exciting moments. WWE offers its fans with weekly events like SmackDown, Raw, and NXT across 150 plus countries. It organizes several pay-per-views in a year, including popular ones like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and Survivor Series. With all this going on, it is a wonder how the WWE had a downfall due to Vince. But this is all due to Vince turning the whole corporation PG, which lost a lot of longtime fans who expected real hard mat wrestling. But we'll get to that later on in the video. Let's take a look in chronological order, the start of Vince McMahon's destruction of the WWE. In 1994, Vince caused some controversy during his steroid scandal. The link between steroids and professional wrestling reached a turning point in the early 1990s when McMahon was inducted by the US Department of Justice on illegal activity relating to anabolic steroids. It was thought that he not only actively encouraged use for wrestlers, but he had also provided access to them too. The charges against McMahon could have led up to 11 years in prison and a $1.5 million fine. During an 18-day trial in 1994, in which wrestlers such as Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, and Rick Rude testified, McMahon was acquitted by a jury in the federal district court of charges that he conspired to distribute steroids to wrestlers under his employment. However, the case left a dark mark on the wrestling industry, and over the years, with many former wrestlers having died young, steroid abuse is often viewed as a major culprit. Wrestlers such as Ultimate Warrior, Lex Luger, and William Regal have admitted to using steroids while wrestling under Vince's company, going all the way to saying that the company had their own doctor who gave the wrestlers whatever they wanted.
I did steroids. I did them. I did a lot of them. We had access to them every day, whether it be from somewhere in a gym or go to Mexico to get them, or bring them back from England, or bring them back from Germany when we were overseas. Or we had doctors. There was a Canadian doctor that gave them to us in Canada, multiple dosages. It was why he's not in prison, I do not know. There was at least, let me count, at least 8 or 10 doctors across America that were giving them to us. But at that point, now I'm going back to a time where the doctors could prescribe them to us. But I mean, even today, doctors can prescribe steroids to people. There is steroid treatment. My mother was given steroids for cancer treatment. She was given this stuff called Decadurabolin, which I was buying for $10 a bottle, and her cancer doctor was charging her $60 a bottle. Now this is 30 years ago. I mean, I said, Mom, it's the same stuff. I can give you the shot myself. She believed in her doctor as opposed to, well, she's not around anymore. But there again, we took them. I did. Is it as prevalent today? I think It's not so much in the open today. We were pretty much open about it. In fact, we were so open about it that at one time they had a meeting with us and says, look fellas, we got to clean this thing up.
Steroids have had a huge effect on wrestlers, all the way from being used as evidence in the Chris Benoit case, which dealt with Chris killing his wife and son, then ending himself. And the autopsy showed steroids might have been a huge factor of why his brain was capable of such horror. When wrestler Chris Benoit and his wife Nancy and son Daniel were found dead in their home, McMahon canceled a 3-hour live episode of Raw and instead replaced it with a Rush tribute show. During the broadcast, fellow wrestlers discussed Benoit's life and career, and a highlight showcase of Benoit's past matches was screened. However, it was around the last hour that reports began to surface that it was possibly a murder-suicide by Benoit. The next day, after more details emerged, McMahon was forced to confront the backlash, giving an emotional but brief statement. Benoit was never mentioned again on WWE programming, ever. Now that we are on the topic of death, who remembers Owen Hart? In 1999, Owen Hart, personated as the Blue Blazer, fell from the scaffold during a special entrance and proceeded to land on the turnbuckle, killing him in front of a live audience. While the accident wasn't viewed on live TV, a pre-recorded video vignette was being shown. When the broadcast returned, commentators Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler were left to inform viewers of what had happened. However, later in the show, it was announced that Hart had died from his injuries. Rather than cancel the show, after some delay, McMahon decided to continue. Afterwards, there was strong criticism for allowing the stunt to happen in the first place and for going forward with the live event. After he lost his fight for life, they just scooped him up and ordered the next match out. Where's the humanity? Would we not wanted the show to go on? Absolutely not, said Hart's widow Martha in an interview with Calgary Sun in 2000. If this doesn't make you think Vince McMahon is just an awful person, maybe this might. WWE vetoed the plotline of Mr. McMahon and his daughter having an incestual relationship. McMahon's son and WWE Executive Vice President Shane McMahon told the Opie Radio podcast that he had never heard about the idea. He was glad WWE had vetoed it. He also admitted that he wasn't surprised his father had suggested the idea. Sick, exhaust everybody. Sometimes he just does it for his own amusement, he said. On June 11, 2007, the entire episode of WWE's Monday Night Raw was billed as Mr. McMahon Appreciation Night, except that instead of praising him, the episode consisted of various wrestlers calling out McMahon for his poor treatment on them. At the end of the episode, a dejected McMahon leaves the building, steps into his limo, and closes the door. Boom! The car explodes into flames and the scene fades to black. The WWE treated McMahon's death as a legitimate news story to the point where some news outlets actually reported it as a fact. The next day, they put out a press release stating McMahon was presumed dead and wondering about who had planted the bomb. They even scheduled a memorial episode of Monday Night Raw for June 25th, but that memorial episode never occurred. The same day it was scheduled to air, police found the body of wrestler Chris Benoit and the WWE aired a tribute to him instead, but McMahon appearing at the start of the show to admit how he had faked his own death as part of a storyline so he could see what the people thought of him. The stunt significantly boosted interest in the WWE, at least in the short term. At the time of McMahon's death, the company's website normally averaged around 14.3 million views on a daily basis. On June 12, 2007, that total jumped to 36.8 million, and the multiple media outlets produced articles about the tragedy. In early 2021, it was announced NBC Universal paid more than $1 billion for the exclusive streaming rights to all content from the WWE. Among the content that was deleted before airing on NBC's Universal Peacock streaming service was the WWE Survivor Series 19 in 2005, where Vince McMahon used the N-word during a controversial episode with John Cena.
What's good in the hood?
Just hold it down, trying to take care of business.
Keep it up. I'm a
He then walks past a stunned Sharmell and Booker T, both black WWE wrestlers, and Booker T says, "Tell me he didn't just say that." 10 years later, when McMahon fired Hulk Hogan for using the N-word in a private video, WWE fans called Mr. McMahon a hypocrite because of the segment with Cena, but a WWE spokesman told TMZ that while Hogan used the N-word in public, what McMahon did was an outlandish and satirical skit involving fictional characters similar to that of many scripted television shows and movies. The spokesman also claimed McMahon had consulted with both Sharmell and Booker T before doing the segment. We're just scratching the surface with just how a horrible person Vince was. From fighting God in a tag team match to mocking Jim Ross's Bell's palsy live on air and even the Montreal Screwjob, there's much more to speak about Vince. During the Attitude Era, we would start to see Vince wrestle, and do you know what he made his finisher? Yes, his finisher was to make everyone kiss his ass, and I mean literally. He would pull down his pants and show his raw cheeks and make grown men put their faces in his butt. Now, when you realize that he controls everything from match outcomes to employees' personas, that's when you start to feel a little uncomfortable and weird about everything, because he chose this, and he chose who would have their face in his unspeakable place, all while being like 60 years old. He then would start to destroy careers by changing wrestlers' personas, such as Booker T, turning him into the ridiculous King Booker, and Cody Rhodes, who off the back was turned straight into the unliked Stardust, never even getting a chance to show his potential, all while not even speaking about weird storylines that he would force his workers to take part in, like Undertaker's wife being stalked by DDP and Edge having to act like he was having sex inside the ring with Lita, and even tying a storyline around the late Eddie Guerrero's death. And on top of all that, the women matches in this time were just for looks, like having pillow fights and lingerie and panties matches where the women had to remove the other's clothes to win. This is just gross and degrading to all the women who dreamed of being wrestlers as little kids. Later in 2008, Vince would turn the WWE to a TV PG program, taking away blood, chair shots to the head, and all cussing, which turned the whole corporation into a snore-worthy, boring production, which lost thousands of fans. Meanwhile, later in 2019, a new company would arise out of the dark. AEW would jumpstart older fans, bringing back blood, unscripted promos, and amazing matches. All the old fans of wrestling, including those of WWE, would start to fall in love with the new brand, even moving from WWE to AEW like Jim Ross and Chris Jericho, and many more talents such as Matt Hardy, which would start to scare the WWE, but Vince wouldn't budge with his PG rating and kept on making boring content for viewers. Triple H would go on to Twitter to say, "I love Icy Originals, so you should too. Go subscribe, or Triple H will break in your house tonight and pedigree you." Anyway, I don't know what got a hold of me, but Vince McMahon would soon get caught up into what seemed like his last scandal. World Wrestling Entertainment CEO Vince McMahon would soon step away from the business side of the wrestling company while an investigation was conducted into an alleged hush money payment to cover up sexual misconduct. The WWE and its board of directors would soon announce. McMahon has run the company for 40 years after taking over for his father in 1982, when it was known as the World Wrestling Federation. He would still maintain control of the WWE's creative output during the investigation, and the company announced he'd appear on Friday night's episode of SmackDown. "I have pledged my complete cooperation to the investigation by the special committee, and I will do everything possible to support the investigation. I have also pledged to accept the findings and outcome of the investigation, whatever they are," McMahon said in the company's statement. Many women would soon come out with molestation allegations towards Vince, even wrestlers, and very soon after, the likes of Sasha Banks and others would quit WWE without stating exactly why. Suspicious. Soon after Vince would step down, Triple H would take the company and turn it back to TV-14, which allowed blood and other aspects of wrestling, but fans were still spectacle. Skeptical, I'm sorry. What are we talking about? Spectacles. We would soon see glances of wrestling that we fell in love with. But when WrestleMania 39 would take place, we all sat in front of our TVs hoping to see a good pay-per-view that we've been waiting for years, and it didn't disappoint. With a flurry of great matches, we sat in awe, and the icing on the cake was the amazing finish with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. We all for the moment forgot about AEW, forgot about Vince, forgot about everything that made wrestling unlikable for the last 20 years. Right after WrestleMania 39, Vince would go on an interview with Scott Wapner. A blockbuster merge in the sports and entertainment worlds was announced Monday, April 3rd, 2023. Endeavor, the parent company of the UFC, has acquired the WWE and will form a new two-headed sports entertainment company anchored by the two mega brands. Dana White will remain UFC president, but Vince McMahon will stay as the WWE executive chairman. The new company will be overseen by Ari Emanuel, CEO as Endeavor, which will have a 51% controlling interest in the new company. Current WWE shareholders will control the other 49%. The deal is valued at $21.4 billion. So, how did Vince keep his job? I will never know. But what will come of the WWE in the foreseeable future? I will never know that either. But in the meantime, you've been watching Icy Originals, and this has been the downfall of Vince McMahon. I'll see you later.